The John, Anik, and Kenny-Florian podcast.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
John, Anik, Kenny-Florian.
Oh, my God!
Here are your hosts, John, Anik, and Kenny-Florian.
How are ya? Good to be with you.
How
Monday, February 26, 2018. Whole show in a Boston accent today. Hope that's okay. Should be a spirited show today. Episode 145 of the Anik and Florian podcast. And Josh Emmett's just lucky that it was Jeremy Stephens throwing those elbows and not Kenny Florian, because we'd be talking about, some life-altering scars.
Multiple lacerations. Oh, yeah.
Multiple lacerations for sure. And then probably a little rear naked for good measure. We're going to get into Josh Emmett and Jeremy Stephens. You can be sure we're going to get to it in a couple minutes, but we got to check in on the new dad. I'm not sure the listeners care about the rosy stuff, Kenny.
Yeah.
So, and I care more about what's the worst part of being a dad thus far. You're a couple weeks in.
Right.
Tell the listeners what you don't like. We know it's
reality?
awesome.
Yeah. No, they want reality. I'll give them reality. How about explosions in the car?
Ooh.
Just explosions through the diapers, through everywhere. Just kind of, if the diaper isn't secured properly, or if it's not a good diaper,
right,
you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
It can get messy really, really quickly. So
Especially
we've had a few emergencies, but that's it. I love it.
Yeah,
I love being a dad is awesome. It's so much fun.
I mean, don't buy a Porsche, and when the kid shits up the Buick Encore, nobody cares.
Exactly. But you can lease it. Not say
right. That is true.
You always lease it.
Honey, she got it all over the Chevy Equinox. Nobody cares. Ken-Flo late again today, by the way.
I know.
That's all right, though.
Sorry.
Again, though, it's live to tape. We do hope there is a time in the not-too-distant future when this show is not just on TV as it sort of is right now with the video and everything that everyone at Fox Sports has done for this fine program, but to do this thing not just live to tape, but to do it live, to potentially take listener calls and to really have this thing be simulcast and a big deal. I mean, that was the goal from day one, and man, we're just one step at a time. We're trying to get there. So a great night of fights in Orlando, and hopefully that won't be lost in the controversy at the end of the main event. One of the better night of fights I can remember in recent memory. We're going to recap the hell out of it. Also, Ken-Flo's got picks for you on UFC 222. Making the guy make 8 picks on Monday is just cold-hearted. But again, as I said, he doesn't come to me for fun, and to that end, let's get to headlines.
Headlines.
It's time for headlines.
I have some very urgent and important breaking news.
Headlines.
On the John, Anik, and Kenny-Florian podcast.
Flo, I'm drinking Diet Coke right now, too. A little aspartame in the morning. So sorry to disappoint.
I appreciate your honesty.
Just letting you know. A little aspartame fix in the morning doesn't hurt anyone.
No, it's fine. We'll have just another couple years of the podcast. And Anik will just have a massive heart attack.
Oh, I know.
It's good. We'll do it from the hospital room, though. We'll get it going. Yeah.
So it's true, too. I got to stop. So Jeremy Stephens knocks out Josh Emmett, $135 of the second round. Great performance by Stephens, in my opinion. He understood that Josh Emmett was a powerful guy, and he certainly got Rock Kenny in that first round. Yeah. Recovered nicely. I thought Stephens recovered to such an extent that he got his wits about him even before he actually hit the ground. And that's one thing I'll say about Stephens' UFC experience, right? He had the wherewithal to stay in the fight. He's just such a fighter's fighter in that spirit. So I had no doubt that he would recover if he was rocked in this fight. And then, of course, he's able to get Josh Emmett out of there in the second round. So much to dissect when it comes to that finish, but Jeremy Stephens certainly put himself in position for a huge fight here, and by and large should be credited, I would think, for that win.
Yes, he did. And he's, again, proven to the UFC and to the fans that he's a guy that you can rely on. You know exactly what you're going to get every single time he competes. He's either going to take you out or he's going to go out on his shield. That's just his style. So he has a fan-favorite style for a reason. His knockout power is just tremendous. You know, heading into this fight, we were wondering who had more knockout power, Emmett or Stephens. And, you know, I was watching with my wife, and, you know, as soon as Emmett knocked down Stephens at the end of the first round, she goes, "Oh, it's going to be over. Look, oh my gosh, he's going to knock." I said, "No." I looked at Jeremy's eyes exactly as you said. I said, "Nope, Stephens going to get back to his feet, And
raw.
Emmett's going to get knocked out. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? He just got knocked down.
Wow.
I said, no. He's playing right into Stephens' game. Emmett he was moving a lot, and he was trying to find an angle, but he wasn't throwing anything off of it. He wasn't throwing enough combinations. He was essentially just either all the way out or all the way in the pocket, trading with someone like Jeremy Stephens. And the way Stephens was swinging, boy, I was just really nervous for Emmett. I said, Emmett isn't using his wrestling here. He's not really feinting as much as he should. And I thought it was going to play right into Stephens' hands, and it absolutely did.
So you feel like maybe fell in love with the power a little bit, did Emmett, and didn't?
I think so. And listen, you land that shot at the end of the first round. I think it gave him a lot of confidence. He said, I got this. But as you said, Stephens was all there. Even when he got rocked, I think it was more of him kind of being off balance and not really seeing that shot. But yeah, the whole time he was all there. He got right back to his feet and brought it together in the second round. And man, that guy's just got insane power.
And I think Josh Emmett is going to recover well from this and remain a contender and beat a lot of the guys in this top 10. He wrote on Instagram after the fact, just going to put some ice on it and I'll be back. I appreciate all the kind words and concerns. Hats off to Lil Heathen MMA. You know we will be running that back sometime in the future. And I hope when they do run it back, it's not because any win gets overturned here to a no contest or anything like that. And I don't think that's what's going to happen. But let's address the elephant in the room. And let's start with the referee, Dan Miragliotta, who would be the first to tell you this was not a perfect night for him. Forget about the elbows for a second. And I guess if you want to inject them, it's all part of one conversation. I'm going to try to sort of compartmentalize this and do the best we can to not spend 30 minutes on it. But as far as the knee is concerned, in real time, I challenge anyone to be able to ascertain whether or not that thing landed. But I think, Kenny, we can all agree on the replay, and maybe we can't all agree, but I think you and I can certainly agree that on the replay, on the return of it, at the very least, the knee did graze when Jeremy was sort of retreating with it and bringing it back in.
Without a doubt, it landed on the way down, that's for sure. You can't see if it grazed, if it actually made contact and went all the way through the target, that target being Emmett's head. But, yeah, I mean, listen, here's the thing. People watching this fight, they get the rules completely wrong. And I know Jeremy Stephens was saying that Miragliotta told him that, if his one hand is on the mat, you could throw it. Here's the problem. Emmett's knees were on the mat.
Right, one knee was down.
One knee was down. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's one hand, two hands. If one knee or both knees are on the mat, it has nothing to do with the hands anymore. That's a down fighter, and that's a down fighter that you cannot knee. Here's the problem. For Jeremy, maybe he misunderstood the rule. He saw it and just kind of went for it, didn't realize his knee was on the mat. I don't necessarily fault him for that. Was it an illegal knee? Yes, it was illegal. If it landed, it doesn't matter how badly it landed. It was illegal. I don't think Stephens was purposely trying to knock him out illegally.
Right.
I don't even think it really made that much of a difference. I mean, the left hook was way more devastating than knee. I think we can all agree on that. What about those elbows that he followed up with? Those were even more brutal than anything. Right. So I don't think the knee was one of those things that really played a factor in this fight. Was it illegal, though? Yes. Miragliotta, great guy, friendly guy, like a lot of these referees are. He made a mistake. He did make a mistake. Again, is it one of those things where, oh my gosh, they really need to run this back? But I don't know. I don't think it really would have made that much more of a difference. I don't think it was the knee that stopped the fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just that damn power of Jeremy Stephens.
So as far as the knee is concerned and Dan Miragliotta's decision to not pause the action, he seemed to be in a good position, Kenny, to see it. One thing I couldn't get clarification on before the show today, and I tried pretty hard, but a lot of these referees, they don't want to go on the record for sure, and some of them don't even want to get back to you off the record.
Yeah, so or can't because of the commission and all that.
Exactly, right. So we'll see. But I was under the impression, Kenny, that even if you don't land a knee to the head of a grounded opponent, if you throw that illegal strike, the referee is within his right to pause the action at that point in time, either to warn or whatever. So that I couldn't get clarification on as to whether or not that is the case. That if you just throw it and Dan sees you throw it not towards the head or near the shoulder, but you throw it intending to aim at the head, which Jeremy Stephens admitted after the fact that's what
Yes.
he was aiming to do, then a referee can pause the action. I said that on the broadcast, and I believe that's true, but I don't know.
Two things. Let me go back to what you said from Mergliata on his position. When the knee was thrown, he was in an okay position. But when the left hook landed, when Emmett got dropped, he was way out of position, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He seemed like he was. I don't know how referees are supposed to do things or how they're trained to do that. Big John McCarthy or someone with a lot of experience would know better than I would. But he was way off in left field, it seemed. He was way out of position, had to sprint to get into position. That's all going to make things way more hectic than if you're in a good position to start with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He would have been able to be way more calm to see exactly what would have happened and how things would have developed, i.e. that knee that happened. The other thing that I wanted to go back to, what did you just say? Well, I wanted to go back to the positioning of Mergliata.
Talking about whether or not if you just throw the knee, it's illegal. Do you have to land it for it to be an illegal strike? I think most fans would think, well, yes, you need to land it. But I believe that if you're throwing an illegal strike, throwing a knee to the head, that is not allowed.
Yeah, well, okay, that's what I want to talk about. So if it lands, it's illegal. It doesn't matter. It's an illegal blow. That was clear. I thought it did land a little bit. Was it the kind of impact that would have changed the fight, the outcome of the fight? No. Now, here's the other thing. Let's say they did that. Let's say Mergliata did his job. He went in and stopped the action. Do you think Emmett would be able to continue? It would have been a controversial no contest. Everyone would have been angry about that, and we'd be discussing that and how terrible that was and blah blah
agree,
blah.
Man.
So it's a tough situation. It really is. If you're on Emmett's side of things and you're his coach and you saw how hard he trained and the opportunity that he had. Yeah, but he was really badly injured prior to that knee. And as far as the elbows, there was controversy over that. Were those to the back of the head? I don't really think so. Listen, if you're throwing a shot, if I'm throwing a punch at you, right, and you move your head, the target's moving. I can't adjust that in real time as I'm throwing with momentum to switch up a shot to make sure that I'm landing in front of your face. You know what I mean? So Emmett was trying to move. He was trying to scramble. Stephens is throwing those elbows. I don't think those were, he was trying to be malicious with those. I don't think he was purposely trying to aim to the back of the head. I don't have a problem with those elbows, and a lot of people were freaking out about that, but I don't think they realize that in a fight, when that's happening, that's not a fighter really can't control what another fighter does. If I'm throwing it at your face and it happens to move, that's on you. Sorry.
Yeah, we are in agreement on the elbows. We saw something similar, I guess, even though it was on the feet with Diego Sanchez and Matt Brown not all that long ago. As many of you know, Diego reached out to me and was disappointed that we didn't mention on the broadcast that he absorbed an elbow to the back of the head, but of course his head was moving. So let's bring Ray Longo into this conversation, the great Raymond Peter Longo now joining us, because I think you disagree with us at least a little bit, Ray, when it comes to the elbows here. I challenge anyone in real time to say unequivocally that those elbows were legal or illegal. I guess with the benefit of replay, if you want to say it hit right on that back of the neck, back of the head area, I'm not going to disagree with you. How are you, Ray?
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, I'm going to disagree a little bit. Look, I'm agreeing with 90% of the stuff. Very tough position to be in, very, very tough. But, I mean, if you're going to err on the side of caution, you have to make the adjustment. You know what I mean? If you're there's an agreement between Josh Emmett and the ref that guy is there to protect him. And that's really the issue here. It has nothing to do with who won the fight or what would have been the outcome. The problem is, did he do his due diligence and protect that kid? And I'm saying not really. And again, I'm a little biased because I went through it with Weidman, and that thing ended up being such a clusterfuck. And who knows, maybe Dan didn't want to go through that again. That was a mess that took, 15 minutes to figure out, people running in and out of the octagon. So I do think he has a responsibility to protect that guy. And if it's even close, and I agree, there's no question about it. Look, I'm saying Jeremy Stephens did exactly what he was supposed to do. I don't think there was any maliciousness on his part. The guy's a savage. He's going to go for it. We know that. But it's the ref's responsibility to say, hey, whoa, even if it's close or it's going in fast time, I'm not saying it's easy, but I think somebody could have got seriously injured with that, and that's where I'm coming from. I'm going to go on the side of safety, and you're right. Either way, it's going to be – look, either way we're going to be talking about this, but one way the guy's going to be safe, and one way there's possibility the guy's dead. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it might not be good, and that's why I said I'd like to take out, who would have won the fight or what would have happened. I think that's irrelevant. It's more just adjusting to what's going to happen in the future. It's like, even the thing with Dominick Cruz, I'm even with him. If it's my guy, I think Kenny said it. If I'm a Josh Emmett guy, I'm going with that. If I'm a Jeremy Stephens guy, obviously I'm leaning towards that. It's that type of situation which I think allows that to happen. But I mean, again, you got to go with the safety first, and I think that's where it gets a little screwed up, man. I don't know. I saw that as, and I was going off on a tangent, but I think even with Dominic, he started getting crazy. Well, it's only illegal if the ref calls it. I don't know. If I try to hit you with my car and you jump out of the way, it's only illegal if I hit you. I mean, I don't know. I run a red light, nobody sees it.
Yeah.
It's only illegal if the cop pulls me over. Really? Is that it? The intent of doing it had nothing to do with anything. You know what I mean? I thought he was going to say next, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there, does it make a sound? I mean, this is where we're going.
That's funny.
It's crazy. I mean, I'm saying...
Listen, Ray, you make a good point. Refereeing is not easy, but you know what else is
Definitely
not easy? Fighting isn't easy either. And for a referee, it's way safer for him than it is for the fighters. So I agree with you. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's like, refereeing. It's not, it's not easy. Fighting isn't easy either, So anyways, for a referee, I agree with you. He should be in there to protect the fighters. You're 100% correct.
That's really the bottom line. It's not even again, I'm not looking to get down on the guy, but if he would have stopped that, he at least has the right to say, look, I was worried for that guy's safety, and I don't even care if I'm wrong. My intent was to help that guy.
Yeah.
And to save him from physical damage that, because when you look, and again, you guys are there live. I'm looking at it on TV, and I'm looking at the replay, and it just looked like, I don't know, he should have had the chance to, he should have had the chance even after the knee to go, whoa, dude, the guy's on all fours.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Ray,
you can't do that.
What's the solution here? Would you like to see these guys run it back? Do you think Emmett deserves a shot at a rematch? What do you think these guys should do?
Rematch or no rematch, man, he took some blows that probably could have been prevented if that, he would have got warned for the knee and had a chance to regroup a little bit. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I nothing's going to happen. That's the other thing.
I know.
Even when I had the controversy with Weidman in New York, I mean, I had the commissioner tell me there's no instant replay. Yet they went to the instant replay. I mean, I think the first thing that has to happen is, like I've been saying it, like a national board. Everybody's got to be on board with the same rules, not state to state. That's bullshit. I really think Jeremy Stephens is 100% right. I think he really thought that was a legal knee because he was told that one hand down, you can knee a guy. It probably left out the fact that if both knees are on the floor, it's illegal.
Exactly.
But, I'm saying it's confusing, Kenny.
Right.
Even
No, it
me.
is.
Yeah.
As a coach, it's fucking confusing.
And
really
imagine
is.
this.
And
you've gone through this process with Weidman. Chuck Mindenhall had a great article on this, and he said, you have a better chance of hailing a cab from the top of the Empire State Building and getting an appeal
Kenny,
overturned. It's just not going to happen.
The only way these refs are going to get in trouble at this point is if they stab somebody or shoot somebody in the octagon. That's it. Outside of that, they're immune. Yeah. They're immune to everything.
Yeah.
Do something. Go be proactive. Suspend somebody. Take away some money. Do something. There's nothing being done. Nothing. And again, that was a clusterfuck with Chris, and I could see Dan not want to even be involved. I mean, and maybe that affected his decision. But it was quick. And that would have taken a really talented eye to step in there. So I don't know. I feel for everybody, even Dan. I know it's not an easy place to be, but if I'm Dan, I'd rather make a mistake and at least go back on. Look, I'm there to protect the guy.
And just to hop in one more time, and John. Sorry, John. One other thing, Ray, as well is that. Emmett got out of there. He has a broken orbital bone. I think maybe in 2 or 3 places. I think I heard. Yeah. So those are the kind of injuries where that could affect you. If the orbital bone is broken enough, that he could never fight again. I'm not saying that. I don't know any about.
Oh, exactly.
But it could.
Well, that's why I say rematch or no rematch. The damage is done.
Right.
I would have rather had a controversy, let him do it over again. That same thing with Weidman. Just let him do it over again. Obviously, everybody doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would have been a fair thing to do. But now, Emmett, you know, maybe that last elbow is what cracked his orbital, and that should have been prevented if the guy got the warning for the knee. At least a warning.
Yeah.
You don't have to make a big deal out of it, but you got to address it. You can't just stand there looking at it and do nothing about it.
And it's really not my intention to lose sight of the safety part of this, because as Kenny well knows, Ray, I have always been someone who has wanted them to stop fights early. You know, Josh Rosenthal was universally praised as a referee because I think he let fights go late. And I was always on the side of premature stoppages. I guess I'm just trying to think of solutions and how we can make it easier for referees, for fighters, for broadcasters, because it is chaos right now. And that's why I even suggested for the first time ever as an MMA fan that maybe knees to the head of a grounded opponent, that I would actually, if I got a vote and it was up for vote for the first time in my life, I would actually vote for it. And Greg Savage wrote on Twitter, it would be the single best thing to happen to the rule set, would stop a ton of stalling in the sport and take out a lot of ambiguity for referees. Now, I know both you guys are going to say it probably would not be good because it's not at all safe for the fighters, but I mean, Ray, if you're getting kneed on the head, right, I mean, like, aren't you putting yourself in a bad spot to begin with? I mean, is there any merit in trying to help clarify this to actually have knees to the head of a grounded opponent be legal?
Well, I don't want to speak for Josh Gross, but I think the point in that whole thing was ambiguity. That's what's causing the problems. His thing is,
Greg
if
Savage,
you know there's knees to the head, then you take that part out of the referee. You know what I mean? Like, but if you think there's a rule and the ref is there to stop it, then that's where the ambiguity comes in. They don't know, you know. So I think his point is, like, if you made knees to the head legal, then the other guy would know exactly what to do. He'd bail out or he'd go into some other defense or whatever it's going to be. But to have it, you're not even sure what the rules are, or they're changing state to state, that's the first thing that has to be addressed. There can't be any ambiguity with the rules. The KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. The easier those rules are, the easier it's going to be for the referee. You got to take out a lot of stuff from his hands, because I don't think, you know, like, again, you're putting too much weight on these guys, and I think that's where the problem comes in. But keep it simple. If that's it, you might be better off kneeing to the head at this point, because then everybody knows it. There's nothing to do, and the ref could just jump in after the first knee and stop it if he wants. You know, you always have that option, you know, to stop it. And again, if a ref is doing the right thing and his intent is correct to help the fighters or to make sure the guy fights another day, I think that's going to be a harder thing to argue. I really do. I think that's going to be a hard thing to argue. The guy is always going to be cautious, and that's the type of ref he is, and I think people will feel better with that.
You have to give the referee the power when he sees an illegal strike thrown to pause the action. And I do believe, and I couldn't get it on record today or get the clarification I was looking for, but I do believe that is the case. I just want to read you this one tweet, and then we can move on, from Ben Folks. For instance, if I'm clearly trying to headbutt you, but you're just barely moving out of the way each time, are we saying that the ref's hands are tied, like he can't say or do anything until after I've succeeded in fouling you, Ray? And I think that's your point, right? Like, if I'm trying to hit you illegally with a car or a knee, right. You know.
It's 100% right. And you're not even looking for this fight. You want to make sure it doesn't happen in the next fight. Now, guys, you know, you don't want guys just, I was aiming for the shoulder and start playing that game where they knee in the head. No, it's a sorry, but the damage is already done. That's the problem. So I think Ben Folks is 100% on the money. You know, it's the intent that you have to at least make sure these guys understand. That is, it's just wrong. I'm going to tell you a real quick story. I had an amateur kid fight over the weekend, and the amateurs, you can't punch to the head on the floor, right? So my guy, crushes the guy, but it was one of the craziest amateur fights I've ever seen. He did more damage to this guy's body than I've ever seen done in an amateur fight. And at one point in the fight, I'm like, he's going to get disqualified. This is crazy. He's like going berserk. But he picked those shots. He did pick them. Yeah. It was berserker, but he picked them, and that was the difference. He wasn't just winging stuff and hoping that it hits legally. He was looking, but, man, was he a savage when he was throwing that stuff. And I think, you know, like, again, Jeremy Stephens, I really believe he thought that league was legal. I really did. He could have taken the easy way out and said, I was trying to
for the
knee him to the shoulder and I missed. He didn't. He's being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you got to come in and say, listen, we got to make these rules clear. They got to go back and just make one rule, and that's it, period. Make sure everybody knows it.
All right, last thing, and then if you got anything on the way out, we'll give you as much time as you need. But you had me go back and watch another fight in which Dan Miragliotta was involved, Alessio Sakara against Patrick Cote, UFC 154 in 2012. Basically what happened, to my eyes, is that Sakara landed a lot of shots to the back of the head. I guess there were some verbal warnings, but I didn't see anything resembling a warning from Dan Miragliotta in that instance. Stops the fight as if it's a TKO, and then goes over to the commission, and it is a DQ win for Patrick Cote. So why did you alert me to that video? And obviously there was a lot that I saw that was wrong with how that situation was handled, but why did you send me to that video today?
Well, I mean, I just think it goes to show. I mean, some guys are in the right place, and they just can't make the decision. They can't pull the trigger. That's not easy. You have to be able to make those decisions to be a good referee. And Patrick Cote happened to train at the gym for that fight, so I was a little partial, watching the guy get fouled, so I got a little wacky with that. But the most was you're looking right at it. What is the problem?
Right. There was no
there's a reason why rabbit punching is illegal in boxing from the 1900s. You could kill somebody. You can't hit in the back of the head.
Brain isn't
and that's
protected
with a 10-ounce
back there.
glove. Yeah. That's a very dangerous spot to get hit. And to watch a guy even remotely come close, and you're not doing anything about it, a couple of hits, not good. It's not cool, period.
Yeah. I'm glad that we circle back to that, because you're right about boxing and the rabbit punches. And, yeah, man, it's a serious thing.
And again, as a fighter, Kenny, when you go in there, you're expect the ref, if something goes crazy or if you get kicked in the balls, that he's going to jump in there and give you time to rest.
And referees are going to make mistakes, right? But how many
Without
mistakes
a doubt,
do we allow?
without a doubt.
But how many mistakes do we allow? How many
Right,
times do we go, though that guy, broke an orbital. Next time. That guy, he got concussed, but, we'll do another. We'll let him do another one. See what happens.
Yeah, is it going to take Josh Emmett to bring a civil lawsuit against Dan and go, listen, you had a job to do, and you watched me get pummeled?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it's going to take, but they have to start. I don't know. It's like just the blue coat of silence. Like, nobody wants to. Like, I'd like to hear Big John's take on this one too. Now that he's doing more broadcasting, and do you throw somebody under the bus? You don't. But again, I think it's not an easy job, but you need guys that make those decisions. I think John McCarthy definitely handles most of the situations I was in totally different. I think he's really, really good. You have a couple of really good guys, and I don't know, man. I really don't know. But watching Cote get hit in the back of the head 15 times. I mean, you could count the blows.
Right.
Like, what are you looking at? Just tell me what you're looking at. I'm just curious to know what you think you're looking at. You're right there.
Right. Right. And there was no reaction. And that's why I was sort of put off. Like, if you're Sakara and you're in the heat of the moment, and he was Alessio Sakara after the fact was apologetic, right, for what he had done. But the referee's not even warning him. He's standing in the middle of the octagon now, expecting to get his hand raised for a TKO win, and it's a DQ loss. Tremendous insight out of you today, champ. We bumped you up to the goddamn top of the show.
Saying, look, we just had something with Poirier and Eddie Alvarez, right?
Yeah.
That ended up in what was that? I mean, but again, it was illegal. What do you do? Eddie's not that type of guy. He's in the moment of the fight. But I think that they erred on, the other guy didn't want to continue, right? And then, again, it's they're going out to the octagon. They're talking to Rat. They're talking to this guy. Nobody knows what's going on. You can't get a straight answer. And then there's never repercussions. Never.
Yep.
And that's what they have to figure out. What do we do? Do we send this guy back to the minor leagues for a couple of months, let him chill out with no pressure, and bring him back? There's got to be something. I mean, you could come up with a couple of things, but it all starts with awareness, and everybody has to be aware that there was a mistake made. Not cover it up, not flush it, not wipe it under the carpet. Just address it, right or wrong. You know what I mean? Like, just address it. I don't care which way it goes, but at least come up with it, and then somebody's got to say, well, no, I think he did the right thing. All right, then we know where we stand.
Get Dan Mergliata on the bus to Pawtucket. You're being demoted to AAA.
He's got to ref curling in the Olympics.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's much safer.
You got
much safer. But
yeah,
but listen, we talk about the referees. The reason why we spend a lot of times talking about the referees, and just to kind of close this book on my end, is that when you're talking about a sport like curling, or you're talking about a sport like mixed martial arts, you talk about the amount of danger in each sport. They better be pretty damn good if they're going to ref a mixed martial arts fight. You better be damn good. The margin for error could be the difference, like you said, Ray, of a guy maybe not being the same after a fight.
Without a doubt.
You got to be damn good.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I was saying. Now, what that takes, maybe we have to, vet that process a little better. You know what I mean? We have to bring in different types of people, and if you can't do it, you can't do it. I think, there's a couple other guys out there, they're getting a little older. They just can't pull the trigger. You got to get them out of there, man. The safety of the fighter has to be paramount. That has to be first. And, that's what they're there to do, period.
And there's a decent amount of money on the line as well for these fighters.
Exactly. That's the other thing. We're not even, addressing, But, again, I hope this didn't take away anything from Jeremy Stephens. The guy's a savage. He's on a roll. He looks like he found a great spot. That was a great fight while it lasted. It went back and forth a little bit. Sucks when this shit happens because you just don't know the impact of anything. You know what I mean? And where it would have been. But it certainly looked like Jeremy Stephens was on his way to winning that fight. And, again, he did exactly what a fighter should do. Go for it. And in the process of going for it, if something that goes south, or, south of the equator or the border, whatever, the ref has to jump in there and warn you. And then you can't, as a fighter, even be mad at the ref. You know what I mean? You can't. You did something illegal, whether you know it or not. This is the rules, period. Right. We're adhering to the rules. That's it.
Well, thank you for the extended time today, buddy. We appreciate you, and probably a lighter topic next week, but with this sport, you just never know.
Let's go back to laugh. I don't see Kenny laugh during the broadcast. I'm miserable.
I am now.
Oh man, that's better. I wish I could have said something to make him laugh, but that fight was
good content.
That fight was violent. I think that fight was more violent than the Tate LoBianco murders. I really do. That thing was violent. And if you watch that fight backwards, John, you'll hear Paul is dead in the background. It's crazy, this whole thing. See, I couldn't let you get off easy, Kenny.
You are a gem. I love it. I love it.
Take it easy, man. Good luck. Take care, guys.
There he is. What a savage. Forget
so
Jeremy
good.
Stephens. That fucking guy. My Lord.
He's amazing.
Called me this morning all fired up. I was like, oh, Jesus. I know we disagree on the elbows, but in terms of the elbows to the back of the head, Kenny.
Right.
Nick Lentz, God love him, but he tweeted, best way to solve this problem, make knees everywhere legal. That I have less of a problem with than when he says, I'd also be totally fine with hits to the back of the head, too. This isn't boxing. And I think maybe Nick just doesn't understand or care about the severity of the hits to the back of the head. But Kenny, our late boss, the great Anthony Mormile, when we were at the Worldwide Leader, he had major concerns that this sport was going to witness a death on the highest level, right, on the greatest proving ground in the sport, in the octagon. And there are a lot of people who worry about that happening. And thankfully, since 1993, it hasn't happened in the UFC. But I covered a boxing death in 2005, Levander Johnson, and it's a real thing. And so I'm glad that Ray was sort of able to at least shift our discussion, at least from my standpoint, for a minute or two to fighter safety. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I think even me in the aftermath of this fight kind of lost sight of that. And thankfully, Josh Emmett is okay.
Yeah, and listen, as far as simplifying the rules and saying, let's just do knees from everywhere, would it simplify things? Absolutely. Is it going to make it safer for the fighters?
No.
I don't know. Probably not. And what about, upping your chances of hitting someone in the back of the head with a knee?
Right.
That risk, it's going to be more liable to happen. The reason why you don't hit to the back of the head, I said it earlier real quick as Ray was talking, but your brain isn't as protected back there. It's much softer. It's the older part of the brain, way more susceptible to damage. So that is why they don't hit to the back of the head in boxing or in mixed martial arts.
All right, let me just get you two possible solutions real quick, and then we can move on. I do want to talk about the final Stevens elbow, and then I promise we'll put it to bed. But in terms of solutions, so maybe having smaller referees relative to the weight classes. Like if you got a guy like Keith Peterson in there, and he moves pretty well, that neck tattoo does not hold our buddy Keith Peterson down, that's for sure. But, Dan Mergliotti trying to move 275 pounds to get in position around these featherweights. And I know the higher profile referees, the veterans get the main events a lot of the time, and I don't understand that whole process, but maybe have smaller referees for the smaller fighters. And then I'd also like to see the referees, they have to issue a sign for a warning to the crowd, to the, I know there's something verbal going to the fighters, but at least so there is some acknowledgement that he has warned a fighter for extending the fingers, not pointing them up, or for throwing an illegal strike, anything like that. Or that's borderline, throwing to the spine. We saw one interruption. I think Kevin McDonald halted the action right after seeing a punch to the spine. So a lot of different things there. Hopefully we hit every angle of it. I also just don't love the absolutes, right? We're all entitled to our opinion when something like this happens. And in large part, it gets serious in MMA because it's not a stick and ball sport. But if this happened in baseball or basketball, we'd be just saying everybody's entitled to their opinion. It's sports, right? So I didn't think this controversy maybe was as big a deal as some other people, but obviously when I got online, I understood the magnitude of it. The last elbow thrown by Jeremy Stephens. For me, Kenny, not unlike Francis Ngannou's last shot against Alistair Overeem. I just think this is something that the sport could do without. I'm not saying everybody is going to have the restraint of someone like Rafael Assunção, as we saw recently, but I feel like Jeremy Stephens, with his veteran savvy and experience, I've never been in the cage, so I don't know how hard it is in that situation to hold back. To me, I think Jeremy probably had enough time to see a concussed, unconscious opponent here and not land that final blow, but I could be wrong, and maybe I should give Jeremy the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I would say this, is that his job is to fight. He's a fighter. And yes, absolutely, there's times where a fighter recognizes that and lets him up. Fighter isn't able to continue. Clearly, he's messed up. Referee comes in and stops the fight. But there's other instances where a fighter kind of walks away. How about Millender against Thiago Alves when he did it a little bit, kind of stepped off, raised his hands like he was going to walk away? Alves was still in the fight. He was able to come back. What happens if Alves came back, got back to his feet, knocked out Millender? So you have to go out there and do your job as a fighter. You can't necessarily assume, it seems like the guy's knocked out. We've seen guys come back. Pat Barry and Czech Congo. That would have been an instance where you would say, clearly the guy's getting knocked. Oh my God, he got knocked out. So, you have to do your job as a fighter, I think. I think Stephens did the right thing, honestly. I think, again, for the referee, that is the referee's job to go in there and see if the fighter can continue or not. So... that's my issue. And then I think you absolutely make a great point as far as, the weight classes and the size of the referee. I think it absolutely makes a difference. I think Keith Peterson probably would have been able to move better with the featherweights, but then at the same time, do you want him refereeing, Stefan Struve and Andrei Arlovsky and be able to separate those two? If one of those huge heavyweights wants to continue and, try to hurt the other guy, is Keith Peterson going to be able to stop him? I don't know. You want to have a big guy in there. So, I think that absolutely makes sense.
Well, if I'm fighting in an alley, give me Keith Peterson on my squad of 5.
Yes.
So was Dan Mergliotti the referee in question for Czech Congo and Pat Barry?
I don't know.
Because in that instance, I don't know. I think it was Herb Dean.
Was it?
But in that instance, I thought one of the poorer referee things to ever happen in the UFC, because the referee actually made contact with Pat Barry.
Yes.
Right? Poor Pat Barry. Every time I see him, I'm like, dude, you got fucking hosed on that Czech Congo fight. And last thing I'll say on Stephens-Emmett, I thought about leading with the illegal knee in my post-fight interview with Jeremy, but obviously that moment took on a different magnitude for him, and I just chose in those 90 or 120 seconds not to make it all about the illegal knee. Also, generally speaking, in those situations, when you ask a winning fighter about a potential foul, it's fruitless, right? He's not going to give you much
about it. Yeah, it happened in a blink of an eye. Yeah.
So I just wanted to address that. And again, it's fair criticism if people want to criticize me for it, but I wouldn't go back and change it. I wanted to give Jeremy his moment, and I thought it was a pretty powerful one for a guy who just made his 28th UFC appearance, a guy who I think is going to have north of 40 when he retires. Absolutely incredible that a guy who he walked into that octagon, though, Flo. I know you care a lot about your UFC win-loss record. He walked into that octagon 14-13 in the fucking UFC.
Wow. Well, and again, look at, how many people can have that amount of fights in the UFC and actually look better over time.
I know.
He's looking better and better. Stephens is a guy that I think a lot of featherweights want to avoid because of his record, because of the threat of them getting knocked out and possibly never being the same again after he hits them. What a threat he is. I'm real happy for him. He's a savage inside the octagon, but talking to him outside of the octagon, he really is as nice as can be. He's an excellent father, a guy who really has changed his life around. So very happy to see him get the win.
Yeah, he's been through some stuff. I mean, I remember, Kenny, when we were in Minneapolis in October to call his fight. I don't know if it was against Steve Edwards, but he was arrested day of, remember, at the host hotel and 14 elementary schools. But he really is a great guy, right? Like, this isn't some asshole who was trying to land one final seminal blow. Like, there really is a good guy in there.
Yes.
And isn't it funny that the guy who Conor McGregor said, who the fuck is that guy, is on the cusp of featherweight title contention? Yep. I mean, what are the odds? Because he certainly wasn't when Conor threw that liner out there. Yep. All right, Jessica Andrade. I mean, do you know what this woman would do to someone like me, Kenny? Never mind what she would
fold you like a lawn chair, kid. I mean, she is strong.
And all due respect to the great Tisha Torres in defeat, I'm excited to see what she can do, knowing she can survive 15 minutes through hell with Jessica Andrade. But how about the pile driver? 7 takedowns, just relentless in that pocket. And Torres really didn't have much more than a scratch on her. But this Jessica Andrade is something else, man. I mean, I find it hard to believe that as long as she stays healthy, that she wouldn't at some point have a belt around her waist. She is that good to me.
When she gets going and when she warms up, man, she is a problem. And I tell you what, Tisha Torres fought a hell of a fight.
Yeah.
She fought an excellent fight. I don't know if she could have fought a better fight from the skills that she has, right? That she came in with. She fought a brilliant fight. I thought she probably won that first round. Andrade at the end, with that takedown,
right.
Even things up. But anyways, after that, once Andrade started heating up and those takedowns, there's no one who could stop those. Once she gets in on those legs, man, it's wild. She's just so much stronger. Tisha Torres is extremely strong for that division. She's very athletic. She moves real well. But Andrade, like I said, heading into that fight, she's just a different kind of beast. She's too nasty. She's too strong. And when you talk about a division that is still developing, as far as the women's divisions, it hasn't been around as long as the men's divisions, obviously. So the skill, the talent, the skill level, it's growing. It's getting there. So when you have a woman that's as athletic, strong, and as aggressive as Andrade, that goes a very long way. And she showed that again. I mean, just stayed calm. Anything she got hit with, and Torres was landing shots, there was no change of expression on Andrade's face. It was like, this is normal. I'm just, taking a shower. I'm fine. Waiting in line for a sandwich. There was no change of expression. She's an animal.
Right. It was as if she was getting hit by me. And you're right. Say what you want about the women's game, and people will say what they want about the women's game. But when you are watching the truly elite fighters, the top 5 in at least 2 of these 3 divisions, it really is a sight to behold. But
that was my favorite fight of the night. That was my favorite fight of the night.
And it was the fight that jumped off the card for me when the main card was announced. So for sure, we will have to table that, though, for a second, because now with us on the guest line the day before he travels to Vegas to corner the great Frankie Edgar at UFC 222, head coach to the stars, and truly one of the better people that Ken-Flo and I have met in this mixed martial arts world, this crazy fucking world. The great Mark Henry joins us. My man, how are you this Monday?
What's going on, guys?
Oh, man, never a dull moment. We spent the first half hour of the show talking about this Jeremy Stephens, Josh Emmett business. I don't know if you care to comment on that, but it just seems like every weekend we're talking about something rules-related or judge-related or referee-related. Thankfully, Josh Emmett's okay, but obviously a lot to digest over the weekend, my man.
Yeah, I thought that the elbows were clean. I know that they talked about that. DC talked about that after because he was putting his head down. But the knee was definitely illegal. But I just think the knee really had nothing to do with, the times that he got hurt. So, I'd hate to see, Stephens take a loss from something that I don't think had to deal with the finish of that, because I think regardless of that knee, because it looked to me like he missed forward, but he caught after, but on his way back. But I just feel like the times that you saw him really hurt were from other punches and blows, not from the knee.
Mark, how is Frankie doing? He's been fighting a very long time. He's done some amazing things in this sport. How is his hunger? How is his body heading into this fight against a guy like Brian Ortega?
Man, first of all, I didn't know this was about Frankie. I thought this was about me receiving my 5 pound gold trophy that you guys bestowed upon me. I thought that's what
right.
I was waiting in the mail. I was waiting in the mail, and it didn't come. So I figured, you guys were going to hand me over that big fat trophy.
I'm making it by hand right now. I'm making it by hand by now. I'm waiting for the gold to come in. Yeah, 18 karat. It takes a lot. It's hard to work with.
But thanks so much for that, man. That definitely coming from you too, bro. It totally meant a lot. A guy that's been in 4 divisions, and not only 4 divisions, but was at the tip of the top in those 4 divisions, man, the best of the best. So just to throw out a thank you for that. I tweeted, but I don't know if you saw it, but it really meant a lot to me.
Thank you, man.
But pertaining to that other guy, that other guy,
Frankie guy.
Frankie. Yeah, it's funny the way you asked the question, because so many people ask me, how many years he has left, and so on and so forth. And when I see him as an Ortega. I see him as, this, phenom, this kid that's coming up, that's hungry and working hard and getting better every day. And I see him like that, or a guy like Zabit that we have, who's young and just getting better all the time. And that's how I see Frankie in my eyes. He's always this kid. I've been with him 13 years. He never misses a practice. Always there first, last one to leave. Eyes wide open. Always wants to try new stuff. I mean, there's no difference in him than any white belt or new guy that you have in the gym. So when you have that hunger and that drive, and just the progression, I just think, man, I really don't know when this kid stops, and he's looking phenomenal, pertaining to your question.
That's great to hear, man. What's exciting about this fight is that I don't think either of these guys have really faced one that's like the other. I don't think Frankie's faced someone like Ortega. I don't think Ortega's faced someone quite like Frankie Edgar either. What are some of the things you guys are working on in preparation for this fight?
Well, originally, everybody knows it was supposed to be Max, and, they do have some similarities, they're almost the same height, with Max a little taller, and, they both like to fight, they're both, I look at both these guys, as amazing fighters, especially Max, man, just have so much, this kid, man, I really look up to Max and what he's done and how he's got there and what he's done since he's had the title. Like, this kid is just fearless. And his game has just gone to another level. And, when you prepare for someone like Max, I just think that you're just ready for anybody, man. So, preparing for Max and trying to, game plan and get to beating someone like Max, I just think prepares you for anybody in the world. I think he's that good. And I think Ortega's amazing, too. And to tell you the similarities, I remember BJ. We were so scared. And you can remember back with BJ, I mean, he didn't lose, when he was at 55, pertaining to 55 and stopping everybody. And he was just amazing, and everybody was scared to death of his jiu-jitsu. So it reminds me a little bit of that fight when we first fought BJ, like don't give your back or watch your neck going in for a shot, and, those things. But we're really confident with Frankie. Ricardo Almeida, has been with Frankie forever, and Renzo Gracie, so when you have that type of jiu-jitsu, man, like, people don't understand, Frankie's a black belt also, and his jiu-jitsu is excellent, man.
Mark Henry with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. He, of course, will be in Frankie Edgar's corner this Saturday night when he faces Brian T-City Ortega. I know you're a huge football guy and a big Buffalo Bills fan, so I'll ask you a question about advanced scouting, right? As soon as Max Holloway is out, and you guys know you want to preserve that March 3rd date, I mean, you got to think Ortega is a guy who's on the short list. How much advanced scouting are you guys doing so that when something like this pops up, you're ready to, hit the ground Bill Belichick style, hit it running?
Well, anybody who's in the top 5 or whatnot, or is rising up, and that could be up for a next title shot or whatnot, you try to stay a couple steps ahead. So, I'm always checking out. Ricardo and I were just always checking out, like, those guys around were certain guys in our camps that could fight or possibly fight. So definitely had an eye on this kid, and we're watching his fights before this fight. And, when Max went down, we, asked first to see if maybe Conor was out there. And number two, we said, who's up next for the title shot? Want the best guy. That's what Frankie wanted. And, the next guy in line was Ortega, and that's who Frankie wanted, and that's, I kind of commend all our guys on our team, like Edson Barboza fighting Khabib, like, our guys want the best guys, and I commend them for that, and that's how, that's how it was when you came up. I know you fought the best of the best, so, that's a kind of our still old school mentality.
Ken-Flo never ducked anyone. Never, ever, Mark.
And he did not, never. He didn't. He didn't, and I got to tell you, I don't know. I was scared to death, and I used to watch so much tape on Kenny because I thought it was inevitable that him and Frankie got together. And I told Kenny that too, how I would watch tape on him because I'm like, man, it's the next fight or the fight after or the fight after. So I watched a ton of fight on Kenny, and Kenny was one of those guys that could do it all on the ground or standing. He was kicking very well, so he was southpaw. So I was a little nervous at those times.
Thankfully, I didn't have to deal with that.
I remember watching a lot of tape on Kenny.
Thankfully, I didn't have to deal with that monster in my career. So.
Well, I thought it was definitely going to happen.
I know, right?
I know.
I know. How did that not happen?
I have no idea, but I watched a ton of your tapes. I thought it was inevitable.
Well, I hope Kenny won't be mad when I say this, but absolutely it was on Ken-Flo's radar. We used to walk through the halls at ESPN, dude, and I would say to him, it's like, dude, you got to get in there with that Edgar. We used to talk about that fight all the time, But
I thought it was definitely happening. That's why you say hi. Back then too, when everybody was a little meaner, everybody's more nice now.
Well,
you just put your hand up like hi to him, but you wouldn't talk to Kenny. You wouldn't say hi or anything. You used to be cordial but not nice, and that's how it was back then.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you said it because, truth be told, in those ESPN halls, I would say, dude, fuck these Jersey guys, right? Like, go beat Frankie Edgar's ass. That's what we were saying. So you're right. It is much more cordial now. So
I got a problem with Boston anyway with New England.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got a problem with Boston guys anyway.
So unfortunately, Florian Edgar did not come together, and the same can be said for a Conor McGregor-Frankie Edgar fight. Now, I know you did take issue with an Instagram post that Conor put out there last week. He wrote, "I put my name forward to step in at UFC 222 to face Frankie Edgar when Max Holloway pulled out, but I was told there wasn't enough time to generate the money that the UFC would need, and I was excited about bouncing in last minute to take out the final featherweight, yada, yada, yada." You said, and you said it here on our airwaves, that you guys asked for Conor McGregor specifically, and he also asked for the fight. I know you've given Conor a lot of respect for the fighter and the work ethic, and you even did so in this post, but what was your biggest issue with him posting that he had offered himself up to face your guy?
I just think it's corny, it's just corny, like we have Frankie asked for it. Conor's the president. He's the president or vice president. You tell me a fight that he wants that he's not going to get, that doesn't have some insane or ridiculous circumstances to it. I mean, you tell me if that guy wants to fight Frankie, they're going to say no, or he wants to fight anybody. He's pretty much almost vice president, of the organization. So,
right.
But, we're full, without. So when you saw it, there was 3 different times he could have fought Frankie, and he said no each time. So I just thought it was ridiculous. We're full head going. Ortega's a killer, man. So that's all we're, concentrating on. But just to say Frankie's name like that, because I know he's, posting stuff about Max. And I think, man, Max is such an amazing champion, a guy that's defended, a guy that, that said, hey, you got to, who earned his title shot, and they keep saying fight one more, and the kid would keep fighting, no problem, we'll just keep winning. So, I have so much respect for a champion like him, and he puts out posts on him, and then he did one on Frankie. So, it's just thought enough was enough.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. I know how excited you are for this weekend. It's obviously going to be a busy 3 months for you with a lot of fighters in the UFC and in other promotions, but this is Frankie Edgar we're talking about, right? This is the Iron Army. This is the face, the future Hall of Famer. What are Mark Henry's emotions like when you make this walk with Frankie Edgar, whether it's a title fight or otherwise?
One of the things is just look straight forward. Don't look around. Look straight forward, and I'll check out my arm a little bit. I write some things down on my arm that we've gone throughout the whole camp, and definitely are concentrating on, and and usually when they announce the guys, I go down a little early to get in my seat and start concentrating. And that's about it. Just concentrate on what Frankie's going to do, and concentrate on him more than anything, and what he wants to do when he wants to do it. And I believe he's, like I said, man, he's just getting better every day, man. Like I think especially his stand-up's gotten so much better in the last year. Where I've corrected some things, so I'm really pumped up for this fight. And you got to be pumped for a guy like Ortega, who I think is an amazing fighter and comes to fight and comes to finish. So it's an exciting fight.
And to your point, not a lot of guys willing to fight Frankie Edgar on about a month's notice. So I know you tip your cap to T-City for that. All right, we appreciate your time, my man. All the best to you and Frankie. I look forward to shaking your hand Friday at the weigh-in, if not sooner. Thank you for the time, sir.
Take it easy, guys. Thanks so much, man. And I'll be looking for I keep looking at my mailbox. Don't worry, though. It's probably got to be signed. It's probably at the post office. Something like that they got to hand off.
That's right.
All right. Thanks so much, though, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
There he is,
Right,
Ken-Flo's 2017 Coach of the Year.
Well deserved.
Robert Follis Cornerman of the Year.
That's right.
The great Mark Henry. But, dude, we used to talk about that fight between you and Frankie quite a bit. And
I always thought it was going to happen, man. I always thought it was going to happen. So it's funny that it never did. But Frankie was just a beast back in the day, man.
And just interesting also what his career held after you retired, because I know you've said somewhat
Still a beast. I don't know why I said
he.
he was a beast back in the day. I meant when I was fighting.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. But, and I know you maybe he would have been more of a problem than those of us on Team Florian thought he would have been back then. But I know you and I were very excited at the possibility of taking out Frankie Edgar. So we're going to make some picks here on UFC 222 in a second. First, though, give me a minute to tell you about Mattress Firm, if you would. Everyone knows how important stretching is before an event. Well, so does Mattress Firm, except it's your dollar. Your budget stretches further when you're shopping at America's neighborhood mattress store. It's a true home run, and you'll have a ball. They're the head coaches when it comes to mattress expertise. But know this, they're more than mattress experts. They have a game plan that helps you transform your mattress into a bed. From adjustable bases and sheets to headboards and bedroom decor, they have you literally and figuratively covered up like your favorite cornerback. Go to mattressfirm.com/podcast to see what deals are happening as I read this sentence to you. They even offer you a 120-night sleep trial to ensure perfection and a 120-night low-price guarantee, so you know you paid the perfect price. Talk about a 1-2 punch, a knockout, if you will. Score big with a perfect bed. Head to mattressfirm.com/podcast to get the play-by-play on how you can monumentally improve your sleep today, tonight, and tomorrow. All right, now it is time to make some picks for UFC 222. Let's get to the main event challenge.
It's the main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights! I'm going to do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
See, Flo, that's about what your voice sounded like when you were getting ready to fight Frankie Edgar.
Woof.
You know?
I'm going to do everything possible to win.
Just wait. After yelling at a kid for a couple years, you'll be like, true! Get in here. I'm telling you. People think my voice is all beat up from calling fights. It's from yelling at children. No, I'm not much of a yeller. I'm not.
I don't see that.
All right, so with much of your film study not yet complete, are you working the desk this weekend for UFC 222?
I don't think so.
All right, well, that's good. So then you don't have to do a bunch of film study, right?
Yeah.
So that's good, because
we're
making you make 8 selections today without the benefit of much film study. So let's get you the standings first. Team Anik led Team Florian 24-17. You beat Johnny Zajac, Ken-Flo.
I did?
You won. Yeah, 4-3. So he got you on Brian Kelleher versus Henan Brow. Big 2 points, though, for the Flo on Alir Latifi as underdog. Yeah. So you win the week. It's now 27-21. Team Anik heading into UFC 222. We will get to Kelleher and some of the Orlando stuff on the way out, but we're making picks right now, and joining us for that exercise, Actually, Flo here, one of the more loyal listeners to our podcast, maybe even a day oneer.
I like him already.
And I think he's from the great state of Ohio, which we won't hold against him. Josh Penland is with us. Josh, how are you, my friend?
Hey, John. I'm happy to be here and excited to be talking with you and Ken-Flo.
Thrilled to have you on, my man, and we do appreciate your support over the last couple of years. Let's get right to it. First fight you will see on pay-per-view this weekend, Cat Zingano, back for the first time in a long time, since UFC 200. That was July of 2016. She is the even money underdog here on a Monday against Ketlen Vieira, undefeated 26-year-old out of Manaus. Vieira 3-0 in the UFC, submitted Sarah McMahon as a pretty significant underdog her last time out. That was in September. So, Josh, who do you like here in the main card opener, Ketlen Vieira or the returning Cat Zingano?
It's nice to see Kat get back in the octagon. She's been out for some time, although I don't think that this is going to be a good matchup for her. I think that Ketlen, she's coming in with a lot of momentum. I think that she's going to be the better striker on her feet, and I think that, as you mentioned in the broadcast many times, she's a Brazilian wrestling champ, and I think that that's only going to benefit her in this matchup. So give me the favorite here.
Look at Josh just bringing it right out of the goddamn chute. Ketlen Vieira for Josh as a slight favorite, Ken-Flo. Cat Zingano, again, also in my top 5 if I'm going to an alley. It's me, Keith Peterson, Cat Zingano. We got 3 spots left. Kenny, what do you think about Cat Zingano here in this returning spot against a pretty talented Brazilian?
Well, it's hard to know what kind of Cat Zingano we're going to see. We haven't seen her in a little while. One thing we know is that she is so tough, and she's very strong. She's big for the division. But Ketlen Vieira, I think she's something else. These fighters, these Brazilian fighters from Manaus, they're just traditionally known as being tough as hell. I'm going to go with Ketlen Vieira, Jacare Souza from that same location in Brazil. I think Vieira is going to get the win here.
All right, next up in the heavyweight division, boys, Stefan Struve, minus 225 favorite here for what is his 20th UFC appearance against the former champion Andrei Arlovski. We'll actually have a nice little retrospective on the pay-per-view broadcast for the Pitbull this weekend, so you want to tune in for that. Arlovski now 39. He is on a one-fight winning streak. You all remember the diaper fight, Junior Albini. Arlovski plus 175. Josh, for you, any value for the Pitbull here against Stefan Struve?
God bless Arlovski. The guy's been fighting forever. I just think Struve, he's going to utilize his reach. He's going to stay on the outside. And I think at some point in this fight, he's going to with a nice straight right hand. He's going to put the chinny Arlovski out. So I'm going to have to stick with the favorite again here, Struve. And hopefully Struve can work his way back up so my guy Stipe can get a shot at that rematch.
Yeah, I can get that rematch. Kenny and I remember that first fight all too well. Main event in Nottingham, England, September 29, 2012. Yet I can't remember anything in life that I need to, but somehow that date sticks out there. Ken-Flo, Struve's won 2 of 3. He was stopped by Alexander Volkov his last time out. Your thoughts on Struve and Arlovski coming up Saturday night?
Give me some dice. I'm about to throw them right now. Stefan Struve and Arlovski, they're kind of inconsistent, right? I think Stefan Struve, the guy's almost 7 feet tall, but you always expect him to use his reach to its max, but he doesn't. I think he should have a much sharper jab than what he has. I think he should use those kicks down the middle a lot more than what he uses. If he does that, absolutely, he should beat Arlovski, who, at this point in the heavyweight division, you can get knocked out by any shot, but he has been hurt a few times prior to his last win. I think he lost like 5 in a row. This is a tough one. I think both these guys can win this fight by knockout. I think both these guys can finish this fight. I got to make a pick here. I'll go with Struve.
He's going Stefan Struve. I thought he was maybe going to roll the dice and take the underdog there. Yeah. And remember, too, and a lot of handicappers and gamblers will tell you, you're betting the number and not the fighter, and especially in our system here. I thought one of you might lean Arlovski, but a couple chalk picks there with Stefan Struve. All right, pretty good fight here. Andre Sukumtat, the minus 145 favorite against the Sugar Show, Sugar Sean O'Malley, who is plus 115. Sukumtat Ken-Flo out of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Stopped Luke Sanders in his last fight. That was in December. That result likely why he is favored here against Snoop Dogg's one-time smoking partner, Sean O'Malley, won his UFC debut over Terrion Ware in December. So, Josh, relatively close fight here, at least according to the odds makers. Which way you going, O'Malley or Sukumtat?
Yeah, I think O'Malley, he's super entertaining to watch. He's kind of got a wild style. I think this is definitely like a fight of the night potential kind of fight, although I'm going to have to go with Sukumtov here. I think that he's just a more technical striker, and he's demonstrated in his fights that he's got a lot of power in his hands. And a wild striker, he's going to leave his chin open. I think that he might catch O'Malley here and get the win, so I'm going to have to stick with the favorite once again.
Ken-Flo, Sukumtov, O'Malley, which way you going?
Josh, I thought you threw me off there, man. I thought
I actually wrote down O'Malley.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go with O'Malley. I'm going to go with Sukumtov as well, man. I'm going to go with the fellow East Coaster. I think this is a guy who is now coming into his own. He's had some bad decisions, some bad fights go the other way. Now coming off that big win, a tremendous knockout win. I think that's going to be a nice confidence builder for him. O'Malley, he is reckless. He is dangerous, but he is reckless. I also didn't like the way he came in for his last fight against Ware. He seemed a little bit tired, gassed a little bit early for my liking. Not going to be able to do that against Sukumtov, who comes in tremendous shape. I think he gets the win.
All right, a couple plays there for Andre Sukumtov, slight favorite, at least as we record here on Monday. All right, co-main event. How good is this? Frankie Edgar, minus 190. Brian T-City Ortega, plus 155. You know the book on Ortega, undefeated, 13-0 with that 1-0 contest. Stepping in on about a month's notice, it seemed like Holloway pulled out around the Super Bowl, and he takes on the legend here, the future Hall of Famer, Frankie Edgar. Haven't seen Edgar since the Yair Rodriguez fight. It was a dominant one, but it was all the way back in May of 2017 in Dallas, about a 9-month layoff for Edgar. Not a guy who you really worry about when it comes to time away, extended time away from the octagon. Ortega, outstanding current form. Josh, enough for you to pull the trigger on T-City? How do you see the co-main playing out here in Vegas?
You know, I'm super excited for this fight, and the UFC did a great job of putting this one together late. I'm a big Frankie Edgar fan, and going into this, I was going to pick Frankie Edgar. I watched Ortega and Guida, and I just think Brian Ortega he's just going to be too much for Frankie. I mean, the guy is so calm. He's so composed. We know what he does whenever you take him to the ground, and I just looked at Frankie Edgar's history, and it seems like every time Edgar doesn't take somebody down and beat him up a little bit, he doesn't come out as a winner in that fight. So I'm going to go with the dog here. I'm going to go with Brian Ortega to keep his 0, and he's going to be due for a huge fight after beating a legend like Frankie.
Oh, he beats Frankie Edgar. He's fighting Max Holloway next. Josh, pretty convicted there on Brian Ortega, Ken-Flo. I would imagine this fight isn't the easiest one on the card for you to pick a winner in, or am I wrong about that?
No, I really like both these guys. I think that Ortega has a tremendous amount of momentum right now. Taking a fight on month's notice, though, against a guy like Frankie Edgar, who has seen it all in the octagon, might be asking too much. I think that Frankie has a lot of training partners who can mimic what Ortega can do. I don't know if Ortega has a lot of training partners that can mimic what Frankie Edgar can do and the kind of energy and aggression that he brings into the octagon. I think, as far as the reach advantage, Ortega needs to be able to maximize that the best that he can, keep Frankie all the way on the outside, and as soon as he gets taken down, if he gets taken down, to immediately transition into, a triangle or one of those nasty guillotines that he possesses. If he does get into that front headlock position against Frankie might be in a hell of a lot of trouble. Ortega is so quick, whether he has the arm in or out. That guillotine is just tremendous. He's very well trained, of course, by Henner and Hedon Gracie. But I think Frankie gets it done, man. I think Frankie gives us another big reminder of who he is and what kind of fighter he is. I think he's very motivated to try to get that belt at 145, and he likes that matchup against Max Holloway. I think Frankie Edgar gets the win here.
Just think it could be a crazy fight, right? Every time Frankie shoots, and if he successfully lands, immediately T-City's going to be trying to secure something. I mean, I just think it shapes up as a great matchup. It's also interesting because it seemed like Ortega, Kenny, could have fought Josh Emmett and wanted this Frankie Edgar fight on short notice, right? So I understand the value, of course, of fighting Frankie Edgar, but it seemed like maybe a win over Emmett might have accomplished the same thing, at least in terms of the pecking order if you look at the top 5 right now. Needless to say, Edgar Ortega, they're going to shut the damn door behind him Saturday night. I can't wait to have a front row seat. All right, main event. So Chris Cyborg, guys, minus 1,800. one of the biggest betting favorites in the history of the UFC, taking on Yana Kunitskaya, the Jackson Wink MMA-trained Yana Kunitskaya, plus 850. Cyborg, 5 hard rounds in December against Holly Holm, turning around quickly for the promotion here. What do you do with this one, Josh? And, of course, it's the main event. We'll need the method of victory in the round as well.
There's so much value on Yana. I really debated picking her, but I just don't want to be that guy come the end of the year and Team Anik's down by half a point, and I picked against Cyborg.
They're up. You can take those chances, Josh. He has a big lead right now, a huge lead. You could make an historic pick here, Josh.
As historic as that might be, I mean, she's minus 1,800 for a reason. I think I'm going to take Cyborg. Let's go round 2 knockout.
All right, Cyborg by round 2 knockout. Normally on this show, when we've had a fight price like this, we've tried to figure out some prop bet that's a little bit closer, right? And I'd imagine it'd be over under a round and a half or something like that. Kenny, Cyborg, Kunitskaya, who's the pick to click?
He didn't take the bait, did he, John? We almost got it. I tried to get him. I tried to convince him, but
why don't you? Well, can I just say though,
Josh
that
too
if
savvy.
Kunitskaya, if the problem is, because it's a main event, right? You can get a point for the method of victory in the round as well. So the potential to win 3 points with Cyborg. But if Kunitskaya wins, even if you get the method in the round wrong, you get 9 points in our system. So maybe you should be the guy we're trying to compel to take Yana Kunitskaya this weekend.
I know. Well, now I can't pick the second round, can I? Jeez, Louise. You know what? I'm going to go with the first round. I'm going to go with the first round stoppage by Cyborg. Listen, I think Kunitskaya, she's well-rounded. She's aggressive. But she's just not the kind of athlete that Cyborg is. She has a decent arm lock as well. She upset Tanya Evinger, which kind of put her on the map. But Chris Cyborg is just a different level of athlete. She's a different kind of fighter. She's just better technically everywhere. There's no way I can pick Yana Kunitskaya. I think she'll do some damage in the division, but not against Cyborg. I pick a first-round stoppage by Cyborg.
All right, Ken-Flo, round 1 KO for Cyborg. Ken-Flo going with the broadcaster's dream this weekend. First round finish in the main event. All right, quick picks on the way out. No analysis needed. Of course, if you want to give me a couple cents, I will certainly take them. Mackenzie Dern, minus 285 for her UFC debut against Ashley Yoder, who is plus 225. Josh, who do you like?
Give me Mackenzie Dern. If you can find a prop for her to win by submission, play that for some more value.
Josh likes Dern by submission. Kenny, you know about this Wellington Megatone Gias, her father?
Yes.
Big name in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community.
Absolutely. The guy's an absolute beast. He's been competing forever. He's a guy I know very well. I was hanging out with him in Abu Dhabi last year.
Oh, really?
Just an awesome dude. Tremendous competitor. Actually, Mackenzie's mom is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt as well. So obviously, she grew up on the mats.
Yeah.
As far as, Ashley Yoder, I think she's a tough out for her for a debut. It's not an easy debut for Mackenzie Dern, but I think Mackenzie does get the win by submission. On the mat, there's just no one. There's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, and then there's world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. Mackenzie Dern is just that, absolutely world-class in Jiu-Jitsu, and not afraid to get in the pocket and throw down either. So I think Mackenzie wins this. Ashley, just a lovely girl, but I think Mackenzie's going to be a little bit too much for her on the mat.
Mackenzie Dern right now, minus 285. Big weekend for our buddy Danny Rube, by the way. Ruby Sports and Entertainment, one of the managers in the MMA game. He's got Sugar Sean O'Malley and Mackenzie Dern on the card. Might be the biggest weekend of Danny Rube's managerial career in the UFC, so we wish our buddy Danny Rube all the best. All right, next quick pick, boys. John Dodson, minus 160. Pedro Munoz, plus 130. Of course, this fight was to go down several weeks ago. Munoz missed weight. Now, Munoz, the dog here, despite 4 straight wins, 3 of them by submission. Dodson off the loss by split decision to Marlon Moraes. Also dropped a split decision to Lineker, Kenny. So Dodson staring at losses in 3 of his last 4 if he loses to Munoz here. Josh, which way you going with the favorite, Dodson or the dog Munoz?
Give me the dog Munoz.
All right, Munoz for Josh. Ken-Flo, who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Munoz as well, unfortunately, not going the other way. But, yeah, I think Munoz has a lot to gain here. I think he has a lot to, in this fight to prove himself. to everybody and right that wrong.
All right, last pick here. Hector Lombard favored at a -170 clip to get his first win since 2014 when he beat Jake Shields. Lombard, 4-fight skidder here. He'll try to end it against CB Dalloway, who is +140. Dalloway back for the first time since a win over Ed Herman last July. Josh Penland, who will it be? Dalloway, Lombard.
I think CB is going to survive an early storm. He's going to get the win.
All right, CB +140 for Josh. Ken-Flo, which way are you going?
I'm going to go with Lombard here. I think CB has the skills to win this fight. Not going to be an easy guy to get taken down or anything like that. But I think he gets intimidated by guys like Lombard who kind of walk him down a little bit. So I think mentally he has an uphill battle. I like Lombard in this one.
All right, Josh Penland, great job on the picks. I like the analysis. I like that you just got a nice sound to you, man. Not trying to do too much. So, hey, you beat Ken-Flo back-to-back. You can be sure we'll be calling your number again. Thanks for stepping up for us, and enjoy the pay-per-view, man.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you for being an MMA podcast that spits out MMA week in and week out, and all of us listeners appreciate it, and we appreciate you.
You're
Thanks
the man,
so much,
Josh.
man. Appreciate him saying
Take
that.
care, guys.
Because I think a lot of people don't totally understand that this is a passion project, right? This is not a massive moneymaker for us, at least right now. I mean, eventually I'm hoping to line my pockets, all courtesy of the Anik and Florian podcast. But we want to be here weekly. Of course, when something like Stephens-Emmett happens, it's nice for us to have a platform to engage the listeners. But, by and large, this is sort of a mutual relationship. Us and the listeners, we're here for them, and they're here for us. And that's something that we appreciate and don't lose sight of and don't take for granted. Definitely. All right, a couple other things here, Kenny, on the way out, and I don't know how much time you have, but Ilir Latifi with a huge win against Oban St. Preux, the standing guillotine choke there, and looked like St. Preux was tapping on the other side. Eventually, he goes unconscious. Huge upset for Max Griffin. I feel like you almost need to look at these fight cards blind and find the biggest underdog and just play him or her every fight card because so much happens in this sport that you can't predict. But Max Griffin spoils the homecoming of Platinum Mike Perry. So another couple big winners there on the main card for sure. Ilir Latifi and Max Payne Griffin.
Yeah, sometimes you look at stats and sometimes you look at, what a fighter has done in the last few fights and you say, well, this fighter has momentum. This fighter should get the win. But you have to look at the style of the matchup. You have to look at how these guys match up. I think that for OSP, he gets most of his work done on the mat. That's how he gets his wins, either by TKO. Yes, he hit that knockout with the kick in his last fight prior to Latifi. But that's more rare in my opinion. That's not something that OSP is necessarily known for. Obviously he's known for his choke, he's known for his ground and pound, he's known for his ability to kind of control you on the mat. I didn't think he was going to be able to do that against Latifi, put him on his back. Latifi hits very hard, and OSP holds those hands very low. It always seems like in every exchange he seems very hesitant. So that's why I like Latifi. He ended up pulling through for me. Big shot, calling out Daniel Cormier. Definitely doesn't deserve it. But I like the passion. Well,
it's tricky because he's won 2 in a row, I think, but he's won 4 of 5 or 5 of 6, and one of the few guys that hasn't had a shot. I know Gustafsson, his teammate, obviously is there, and right there are names in front of him, but it's for St. Preux too. That would have been a 4 straight win for him, and you can be sure he would have been calling out Cormier as well. And I think they're also in a position where that title might be vacant, right? So they feel like they need to put themselves on the short list, and at least with that win, Latifi, I guess, accomplished that. And for Max Griffin, Kenny, unfortunately, I think for him, the bigger story for people is going to be Platinum Mike Perry and maybe some unrealized potential, at least right now. He's 26 years old. A lot of us didn't love this as a quick turnaround after the Santiago Ponzinibbio fight in which he absorbed a lot of damage. But after not being able to fight in his native Detroit, you can be sure he was going to land on this Orlando show. And unfortunately, he's on the wrong side of the scorecards here. Certainly thought Max Griffin deserved to win. Yeah. Big night for Griffin. Has any of your enthusiasm on Perry been curbed? And did you have as much enthusiasm as some of us did and still do for Platinum Mike Perry as to what he might be able to do?
Yeah, listen, I don't think this was a good fight for Perry. I thought, great performance for Perry.
Sure.
I thought it was a good fight, a good matchup for him.
Yep.
But he just did not fight very well. It seemed like it took him 10 minutes to kind of wake up and get into this fight. He was forcing that knockout way too much. When you have power, it's so easy to fall in love with it, but it's always going to be there. Stop trying to force a knockout. Throw more than one strike. Throw more than two strikes. Get in there, throw combinations, slip your head off the center line, enter, and throw those shots on the inside. Perry was just looking for a big bomb. Griffin was seeing it coming from a mile away. He was able to use his length. He was using his legs very well, I thought, to keep Perry on the outside. He was moving relatively well, circling away from Perry. And Perry, by the time he realized he could win the fight, there just wasn't a whole lot of time left. So I think for Perry, he has to get used to really throwing his combinations much better, feinting his way in, sharpening up his wrestling as far as the takedowns go. I was surprised that he ended that first round in mount very easily. And then just really didn't have a good entry in for his takedown for the rest of the fight. Just kind of was really trying to power his way into those takedowns. Griffin was able to stop a lot of those takedowns, keep it on the feet, and just outpoint him. I thought it was a nice strategy from Griffin. Very respectful guy, and got the win. But Perry just kind of needs to go, really reevaluate his game. Go back to the fundamentals. The fundamentals.
He's going to do that, too. He's going to take some time off, and I did think that you saw some improvements in his cardio, and I do think that at 26 years old, there is still time, and we'll see how far Max Griffin can take this thing now that he's a full-time fighter as well. All right, couple things on the prelims, and it was a big night for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Kenny. For Rani Yaya, the criminally underappreciated Rani Yaya, another win for him. 10th UFC win, this one by arm triangle. One of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the game still. Marion Renault with a submission of Sarah McMahon. This is a 40-year-old woman who is a high school teacher who got a very late start in mixed martial arts. I know she has some limitations on the feet, but this is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Kenny, who knows what to do when she is off of her back. I was very impressed with the submission win for Marion Renault. Also, Manny Bermudez, you probably didn't see it on Fight Pass, but the New England guy lives in Abington, Massachusetts, undefeated fighter. And he's a fighter, Kenny, who said to me before the fight, he's just like you, right? It's like he doesn't want to get hit with a lucky punch. He understands that in mixed martial arts, that's a real probability. Yeah. So his path of least resistance is to go to the ground and submit guys, and he does it with such ease in his UFC debut against a pretty tough Albert Morales. So by and large, I thought it was a big night for the submission game. Brian Kelleher and Alan Jouban with a couple big wins as well. A lot of names there, Ken-Flo. Who gets the shine here from you?
Man, I mean, Jouban's knockout was just tremendous against a Ben Saunders who's tough as nails. Good to see Jouban get the win, man. He's just a great guy. Who definitely went out that night a star. It was a beautiful finish. Who else?
What
Rani Yaya?
Sorry,
go ahead. Let me talk about Yaya. First of all, I mean, coming off the loss of his mother, just less than 2 weeks ago. I mean, that's got to be extremely difficult, and he was just all over Doan. And Russell Doan, I think he's a very good ground guy, but certainly not at the level of Yaya, who showed why he is considered world class. Just all over him, man. That's what beautiful jiu-jitsu is all about, and really put on a clinic there. And for Marion Renault, McMahon panicked. McMahon got in that triangle. She could have escaped. She should have postured out. She didn't know whether to go in tight and counter, whether to stand up, pull her arm out. Just seemed to be confused in there. And again, it just, to me, seemed like she really panicked. And if you panic against someone like a Marion Renault, who's good with her jiu-jitsu, good with her finishing skills off her back and with that triangle, it was all over. It just got worse and worse. McMahon just made the bad decision after bad decision in there. She was on her way. It seemed like she was going to control and win that fight. One mistake in this game, that's all it takes.
All right, good stuff today, Ken-Flo. Last thing, too, on Yaya. Is that a cow catcher? Some people were saying that position is called a cow catcher.
Yeah.
DC said it was not.
No,
so
it's
that's
not a
why
cow.
We didn't go with it.
Here's why it's not a cow catcher. A cow catcher, you could roll someone in wrestling. The head was caught behind the head. Behind the back, and that's why, it actually could have been a submission. He was in half guard, so if he was able to get out of half guard, that would have been a finish. It's a brutal neck crank. Actually, Jerry Bolander in probably 1996 or something like that, hit it for a submission back in the day in the UFC. It's a brutal move, but it is not a cow catcher. The grip is similar in how you get the double underhooks, but the head needs to be trapped behind the back. And as you roll them, and as you put your back backwards into the head, it creates a lot of force, sending the neck forward. It's hard to breathe. You crank the neck, and you have to tap out. Lucky for Russell, he was in that half guard. He was able to prevent that, but it's a devastating move.
Oh, man, did that not look fun,
No.
right? I mean, you put someone in a move like that, I will never go back to jiu-jitsu class as long as I live.
It's brutal.
Great show in Orlando, though. The crowd was really good, and it was fun to be with some family for me and have them in the building. But fighters just really turned out, and it's such a treat to call fights when you're getting finishes like that and exciting performances. So, as usual, thanks to the fighters for a great night of fights. All right, now with us on the guest line, one of the men who played a huge role in the development of EA Sports UFC 3, a project very close to my heart and my voice. Producer for EA Sports UFC 3, my good friend Freddy Ouano is with us. Freddy, my man, it's good to have you on the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Hey, John.
Did I get your last name right? I know I spent a lot of time talking about pronunciations with you, with others. I mean, did I butcher the surname right out of the chute today, or are we good?
No, you got it. You got it.
Okay. All right, good. So I know how hard you work. I saw it firsthand. I know they don't pass out championship rings to the cast and crew when a video game is completed. But given how much of an undertaking it is for you and your staff and everybody else to produce a game, what happens when, like, you get one in the can? I mean, I know you don't, like, go eat mushrooms necessarily, but what do you do?
You take a long vacation. That's typically what we do. We worked, I don't know, I guess it was a year ago when you and I just hit record on day one. And it was probably about 18 months ago when we started UFC 3. And, you're right. It's a huge undertaking. We got a big, passionate team working on this game. And typically, the game launches, we wait for the reviews to come in, but we're always listening to the fans. We're always listening to the reviewers. We're always trying to, improve the game even before it's been shipped. We're listening to what the fans have said. And once that's done, we usually, the core team tries to take some time off and decompress.
So, of course, our fans are hearing you for the first time, but you're a massive combat sports fan. You know more about boxing than I will ever know, and now, obviously, you've been following mixed martial arts for longer than a decade. But when did you start first working on the UFC franchise of games? And I'd imagine for you being at EA, when EA got the UFC, that was a pretty big day for you in your career.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've been a big boxing fan since I was a kid. I still remember, my dad coming home when I was 7 years old and bringing us, my brother and I, some leather boxing gloves. And from that day forward, we just became huge boxing fans. But for EA specifically, I was in video games and, EA had the Fight Night boxing franchise. And when it came to Vancouver, I called up a friend of mine at EA and I just said, do anything you can to get me on that game. And that was a Wednesday. And by Monday, I was already talking to one of the executive producers at EA Sports. And by the next Friday, I was signed and I was ready to go. And that's how excited I was to get into EA. But more importantly, more excited to work on my favorite game, which was Fight Night. And I worked on Fight Night Round 4, Fight Night Champion, and then the UFC license came up, and I've been working on that ever since. And, that was, I think we've done UFC 1, UFC 2, and we just started launching UFC 3.
Well, you deserve some kind of award for this game, but maybe a bigger award for hanging out with Jon Anik for 80 hours. How did you do that, Freddy?
A lot of patience. No, I'm kidding. You made it very easy, John. I got to say, you're probably one of the best, one of the most professional, one of the most easiest guys to work with in the studio. For those of you don't know, we don't write lines for Jon Anik or for any of the commentary. We set them up with a context, a scenario, and they just
ad-lib all the lines. And John, you were one of the best at ad-libbing. You gave us more than we needed at times. And you put in your homework, you come into studio and you have the notes all lined up and ready to go. So thank you for your hard work.
I love giving John Anik a hard time, but this guy, I've known him for a long time. He's one of the hardest working guys, and homework is basically his middle name. But Freddy, as far as EA Sports 2 and EA Sports 3, what are the differences?
Yeah, I mean, we've made some huge strides in all areas of the game. We try to build on what we had from the last version. But really for UFC 3, some of the big areas are, the entire stand-up striking experience is entirely different. We built that from the scratch up. We threw everything away from UFC 1 and UFC 2, and we don't normally do that. But we had a chance to work with some new technology, which is real player motion tech. And we created over 5,000 new animations in the game.
Wow.
So really every strike, every punch, kick, block, counter has all been recaptured and rebuilt. I mean, we built from the ground up. The result of that and why we did such a huge undertaking was, it allowed us to have the most seamless combinations, the most fluid motion. The stand-up is very responsive, and it enables UFC fighters to look and fight and feel the way they should. And on top of that, I mean, we brought on, dozens of UFC fighters to come in and actually do motion capture and capture their actual one-to-one likeness. So you'll see that in game.
I'm sure it was challenging just to do a boxing game, but doing a UFC game, I mean, there's literally millions of moves and combinations that you can put together for a UFC-style fight game. What was the hardest part about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I work with a very passionate team. Get people that are very smart and love the sport. We have at EA, we have a jiu-jitsu class, we have a kickboxing class, we have a boxing class, and some of the core people leading up to the development of the game, they're there every week. And, since UFC 1, I believe now, they all started at white belts, and I believe there's a few guys that are at blue or even purple belts right now. So, everyone's doing their homework. Everyone's engaged. Everyone's watching the fights. Everyone's practicing. A lot of people are getting punched in the face. And this is just so that we can make the most authentic experience. And you can't do that unless you feel it,
That's awesome.
And, all of that homework kind of, makes it easier for us to make the game. But of course, we're making a video game, and there's thousands, millions of variables that we have to consider. But, with some of the new technology, like, for example, with real player motion tech, motion capture sessions used to be very long, very tedious, and with this new technology, we're just able to get fighters in, get them to move naturally, do what they want, and the motion capture time is half the time now, right? So with technology advances, things get a bit easier for us.
I'm just glad you hit on a lot of that, because I hope fans understand, right? I mean, the guys who are producing this game are putting the gi on and training jiu-jitsu on the EA grounds, right? Like a college campus they got there in Vancouver, right? I mean, guys putting this game together are striking and getting punched in the face. When Freddy told me that, I was all in. So dare I ask, and Freddy Ouano joining us here on the Anik and Florian podcast, producer for EA Sports UFC 3, how soon does any wheel get put in motion for EA Sports UFC 4 once this one is put to rest, relatively speaking?
Like I said, we don't stop. I mean, we're continually listening to the fans. We're engaging with very hardcore players and very passionate players. It's almost as soon as this thing, quote unquote, is done, we're working on the next. We're always there's never a time where we 100% ship the game with everything we wanted to, and that's just due to timeline or budget or resources. So we're always trying to take those ideas, apply them to the next. We're always listening to feedback from everybody and applying that to the next. So really, I mean, people haven't haven't stopped, and UFC 4, or we're already thinking about how we can improve it from the UFC 3.
Well, it looks great, man, and they even have the stand and bang mode, Ken-Flo, for guys like me, because I get taken down very quickly. I usually get grounded and pounded out, so I can just eliminate. It's like great, right? I just like skip a jiu-jitsu class. I can get the wrestling and the grappling out of it. Just do my stand and bang mode. Freddie, how much of a video game player are you? I know you've got a lot of interests, and you explore a lot of different things in art, museums, and restaurants. I mean, how much of a video gamer did you come into this field being?
Yeah, I mean, my background actually comes from film and video production. That's what I did before I got into games. Producing, editing, directing. And I think I apply all of those skills and all of those interests into video games. And really that is my role there is I'm charged with ensuring that the broadcast presentation is as authentic as it possibly can be. So that when a player is watching our game, if they happen to squint their eyes, they say, "Is that TV or is that a video game?" And when people can do that, we've accomplished our job. But to video games, I don't nearly play as much video games as my coworkers. But like I said, I think I bring another perspective from other inspirations like music videos or film or photography or whatnot that are all pertinent to developing a game.
No doubt about it. You bring a lot to the table, and what a resource you were for me trying to voice this game, to have a real, true mixed martial arts fan and somebody who had his finger on the pulse of the sport. And you helped me through those sessions that I've said on these airwaves and in other places were not all that easy. All right, Freddie, thank you for the time. I appreciate you, and congrats on the game. EA Sports UFC 3, available now, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. We'll talk to you soon, my man. Enjoy the fights this weekend.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
There he is, Freddy Ouano, producer, EA Sports UFC 3 in Vancouver. It is pretty incredible, the whole setup they got in Vancouver. I haven't been there. I've just seen like virtual tours. But, I mean, you can appreciate that, Kenny, as a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, the fact that at the very least the people who are doing this game are not just training in the discipline but falling in love with it and going from white belt to blue belt over the course of developing 2 or 3 video games. It's hard to make an MMA game, right? And yes. I think largely these guys have succeeded more so than anyone who has tried to do it.
I love that, man. Very impressive, and you got to admire that work ethic and the ability to go, you know what? Yeah, I want to make a great game, but actually I really want to feel it. That's what's going to take the game to the next level. So the fact that they're actually practicing these moves, learning about the art, I'm always going to be a fan of that. So that's pretty damn cool, man.
And the motion capture stuff you heard him talking about too. Guys like Cajun Johnson benefited greatly from being local, but a guy who can do a lot of different things. And they captured a lot of his motion. He's mimicking other fighters, and I really think it translates. I don't have a great framework for the video game space, but I've liked what I've seen thus far. And as I said, for someone like me, dude, like I'm a terrible video game player. Like you play me in Madden, you'll destroy me. But at least there's this stand and bang mode. Otherwise, I'm getting taken down by strikers, right? And they're just pounding me out on the ground. I just have no clue. I got to get better. EA Sports UFC 3, you can get it out on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. All right, good stuff there from Freddy O. We also have 2 copies of EA Sports UFC 3 to give away. These are PS4, not Xbox One, so I apologize for that. So 1 copy is going to go to the first fan in Las Vegas this weekend. So I know this is selective. I apologize if you're not coming to the show. First fan in Vegas this weekend who comes up to me and says, Florian is going to have 5 kids, okay? That is the secret message. Find me in Vegas and say, John, Florian's going to have 5 kids, and I will get you your copy of EA Sports UFC 3. Next copy will be given away on next week's Anik and Florian podcast.
I'm sweating just thinking about that.
Oh, I know. I'm sure. Well, you got to no, I mean 2 or 3. If you go 5,
anxiety.
You are out of your mind.
Feeling it right here. Yeah.
All right, thank you to our guests, of course, Freddy O. Thanks to Mark Henry and Ray Longo for joining us. Josh Penland on the picks. Next week, full recap of UFC 222, and then mercifully 1 week off for the MMA leader. But we'll be back, of course, every Monday throughout March. But at least we don't have a show to give picks on, so Ken-Flo can get a little bit more time with the baby girl. Good to see you, my man. With that,
Yes.
For the Flow, I'm John Anik. Thank you all for listening, for subscribing, for watching. We look forward to talking to you again next Monday. Until then, yo later.
The John Anik and Kenny Florian Podcast.